My sister lied about her son's emergency brain surgery to sabotage my $8,000 honeymoon. So I reported her to CPS after finding him home alone for 3 days. My sister faked her son's medical emergency to derail my $8,000 honeymoon. But when I discovered, she left her toddler unsupervised for 3 straight days. Surviving only on cereal, I contacted Child Protective Services. While she was partying in Las Vegas, her little boy was home alone. She staged a fake accident involving a drunk driver and emergency brain surgery just to lure me back to babysit. When I pressed charges, she used our brother, a lawyer, to portray me as an unstable kidnapper in court. I made sure her world fell apart. Growing up, my sister Sierra always bragged about how she'd be the fun mom, the type of mom whose children would be her best friends. She swore she'd never turn into one of those strict, rule-bound parents. So when her son Eli was born, I assumed she'd be devoted to him. And in the beginning, she was. She bought every kid's book on the market, documented every milestone, and knew the names of every dinosaur in his favorite book. But on his 4th birthday, she gave him the worst present a child could receive. She walked away. I'll never forget the call. She rang me in tears, saying she wanted to leave him at a fire station and let fate handle it. I didn't yell or judge. Instead, I asked if she wanted me to help more often. She was a single parent coming out of postpartum depression. I thought some extra support might stabilize things. At first, it worked. I watched Eli on weekends, then one night a week, and eventually almost every evening. He became the son I never had. Fast forward to last month, Sierra asked if I could take care of Eli while she went to Vegas for a bachelorette celebration. But it overlapped with something far more important, my long-delayed honeymoon with my husband, Caleb. We'd been married 2 years and saved every spare cent to afford it. I had even notified Sierra 4 months earlier about our travel dates, so I said no. Surprisingly, she wasn't upset. She chuckled awkwardly and said she'd find someone else. I should have known better. At 3 a.m., my phone vibrated so hard it nearly hit the floor. It was Sierra, crying hysterically. She said Eli had been involved in an accident, hit by a drunk driver, and airlifted for emergency brain surgery. My heart dropped. I threw things into a suitcase through tears while Caleb scrambled to get last-minute flights. We begged airlines for emergency seats. Thousands of dollars in non-refundable bookings, gone. During our layover at JFK, I tried calling her again and again. Silence. Panicked, I called the hospital she mentioned. The nurse on duty couldn't find any pediatric trauma patient under Eli's name. 6 hospitals later, still nothing. With no contact and mounting dread, we used the spare key under her doormat to enter her house. But it was already unlocked. We stepped inside expecting chaos or tragedy. Instead, we found Eli sitting calmly on the couch, tapping on his tablet, surrounded by dirty cereal bowls, completely unharmed. He leapt up with joy, hugged me tightly, and shouted, "Hi, you're back!" I gently asked him where his mom was. He said she left 3 days ago, telling him she couldn't afford a sitter but that I'd be home soon. Caleb asked him carefully if he'd been hurt. Eli, bright and cheerful, said, "Why would I be? I'm big now, I can take care of myself." Chilled, I used the landline to call Sierra. This time, she picked up. Loud music blared in the background. "Hey, what's up?" she slurred. "What the hell is going on, Sierra?" I demanded. "You mean Eli? Oh, please," she said, laughing. "I knew if I made it sound serious, you'd rush home. You were so dramatic about that stupid trip. Must be nice, huh? Taking vacations while single moms drown." Behind me, Eli quietly asked if he could live with us. He said his mom didn't love him anymore. Sierra must have heard him. She turned furious, screaming that I'd turned her child against her, that I'd planned this. That was the moment everything became clear. Sierra wasn't overwhelmed, she was reckless and dangerous. My hands trembled as I hung up. Caleb was already making Eli a hot meal. The boy had survived 3 days on cereal alone. I sat beside him and gently asked if he was scared. He shrugged. "Mommy said she's done this before. When you're busy, she leaves me." My stomach sank. This wasn't new. I called child services immediately. The woman on the line sounded jaded, like she'd heard it all. She said they'd send someone by the next day, tomorrow. I argued, told her a 4-year-old had been abandoned for 3 days. She said since there was food and shelter, it had to follow procedure. But she'd prioritize the case. Caleb finished making mac and cheese, and Eli devoured it like he hadn't seen real food in days. He told us how he didn't go outside because he was scared. He'd run out of milk. Tried calling me but didn't know my number. Every word filled me with rage. After a bath and bedtime story, he curled up in our guest room and clung to my hand until he fell asleep. The next day, a social worker named Ramona visited. She looked tired but kind. She gently asked Eli questions, took pictures of the empty fridge and mess, then pulled me aside. She said an investigation would be opened, but warned me the system favors reunification, that Sierra would get a chance to explain. I said that was crap. She just shrugged. That's the law. 2 days passed. We fell into a rhythm. Breakfast, cartoons, the park, naptime, dinner. Caleb was incredible, teaching him games, reading stories. Then Sierra showed up at our doorstep. She looked awful. Greasy hair, smeared makeup, reeking of booze. She demanded Eli back. I blocked the door. She tried to shove through, but Caleb stepped up. She yelled about her parental rights, accusing us of kidnapping. 10 minutes later, police arrived. They separated us for statements. I laid everything out. The abandonment, the lies, the fake accident, showed call logs, messages, everything. They interviewed Eli, who said he didn't want to go home, that mommy scared him. That Aunt Claire and Uncle Caleb made him feel safe. The officers looked at each other, then told Sierra to leave, that this was a civil case now. She lost it, screamed that I'd brainwashed her kid, that I was jealous because I couldn't have children of my own, that I was trying to steal hers. She ended up handcuffed in the back of the patrol car for cooling off. One officer pulled me aside before leaving, told me to document everything, keep records, screenshots, call logs. I would need it. He was right. The next morning, I woke up to 27 missed calls from Sierra. I didn't listen to a single one. I knew the routine: gaslighting, guilt-tripping, fake remorse. Caleb made pancakes. Eli watched cartoons, curled up like he belonged there. Then the doorbell rang. It was our brother Derek, a lawyer. Slick suit, polished shoes, smirking like he'd won already. He served me legal papers. Emergency custody hearing next week. He said I didn't stand a chance. Judges always favor biological parents. I slammed the door in his smug face. I called every lawyer I could find. Most wanted $5,000 just to start. We had $2,000 left after the ruin trip. Finally, I found one, Miles, young but passionate. Took payment plans. We met that afternoon while Caleb took Eli to the park. Miles was fresh-faced, enthusiastic, and determined. He said we had a strong case, but warned Derek was known for dirty tactics. Document everything, he repeated. That night, Eli had nightmares, cried for his mom, then pushed me away, apologized in the morning thinking he was bad. He wasn't. He was just a scared little boy who'd been through too much. The days flew by. I used all my vacation time to prep for court. Miles had me document everything: missed pickups, forgotten birthdays, drunken drop-offs, 12 pages of memories I wish I didn't have. We photographed Eli's room, neat, full of books and drawings. Compared to Sierra's, empty beer cans, cigarette burns, filth, we thought we were ready. We weren't. On the day of the hearing, I wore my best navy dress. Caleb wore his wedding suit. We dropped Eli at my friend Tessa's house. He clung to me, begging not to return to Sierra. At court, Miles warned Derek had filed more documents that morning. Wouldn't say what, just told me to stay calm. Sierra came in looking like the perfect mom. Neat bun, borrowed dress, soft makeup, a completely different person. Grant, her lawyer, painted her as a struggling but loving mom, overwhelmed, vulnerable, asking her sister for help. He claimed I'd agreed to babysit, then refused to give Eli back, called it a kidnapping. Then he submitted medical records, my old therapy for depression, said I was unstable. My world stopped. How did he get those? Miles objected, said it was irrelevant, obtained improperly. The judge added them to her review pile. Grant continued, letters from Sierra's party friends describing her as a devoted mom, false but polished. Then Sierra testified, played the grieving mother flawlessly, said I was envious, that I'd turned Eli against her, that I'd bribed him. She was convincing. When Miles cross-examined, we presented our evidence, the hospital calls, documentation, photos. I described the empty fridge, the dirty bowls, Eli saying he was a big boy. We played Sierra's voicemail laughing from Vegas. The judge asked why I never reported her earlier. I explained I wanted to keep the family together to protect Eli. It sounded hollow, even to me. Then came Ramona. Calm, experienced, firm, she spoke of the filth, the fear in Eli's eyes, how this wasn't an isolated event. Grant objected often, but Ramona held her ground. The judge listened, made notes. But Sierra and Grant weren't done. Grant stood for his final remarks, a final blow. He claimed I let Eli sip alcohol at family gatherings. The courtroom gasped. And just like that, I knew the real fight had only begun. The moment those words left Grant's mouth, I felt like the air had been sucked out of the courtroom. He accused me of giving alcohol to a 4-year-old, said I let Eli taste beer at a family barbecue, and joked that he'd sleep better. Miles was on his feet immediately, objecting on the grounds of hearsay and character defamation. But the damage was done. I saw the judge pause her notes. The implication, though completely false, hung thick in the room. Grant continued like he hadn't just thrown a bomb into the middle of the hearing. He said I had a history of emotional instability, a pattern of obsessive behavior, and was attempting to use Eli to fill a void I created myself. He cited my old therapy sessions and a breakup from 5 years ago as proof I was emotionally unfit. I sat frozen. My palms were damp, my breathing shallow. Miles leaned over and whispered, "Don't react. That's what they want." But inside, I was screaming. When it was our turn to make closing statements, Miles stood and calmly dissected every claim. He emphasized the lack of evidence. No photos, no witnesses, no reports. Just baseless accusations. He reminded the judge that I had never hidden Eli, that I had called child services myself, that I provided food, shelter, and love to a child who had been abandoned. He ended with, "Your Honor, this isn't about jealousy or grudges. It's about a child who deserves safety and consistency." And he found that in my client's home, not his mother's. The judge didn't speak for a long moment. Then she sighed, adjusted her glasses, and said she would review everything and issue a temporary ruling by the end of the week. We were dismissed. As we left the courtroom, Sierra shot me a glare so sharp it could cut steel. Derek gave me a smug nod like this was some kind of game he was winning. Back home, we picked up Eli from Tessa's. He ran into my arms like the courthouse hadn't even happened. He was just happy to see me. I wanted to collapse and cry right there in her driveway. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept going over every word, every detail. Did I mess up? Did I say too much? Too little. 3 days later, the letter came. Temporary guardianship granted to us. The judge cited the unverified accusations from Sierra's side, her prior absence, and Eli's own testimony. She ordered weekly welfare checks and mandated parenting classes for Sierra, as well as supervised visits, if and only when she passed a psychological evaluation. It wasn't permanent, but it was something. I sat at the kitchen table holding the letter like it was a winning lottery ticket. Caleb hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. We both cried. Even Eli got confused and started hugging our legs, asking if we were happy tears or sad ones. "Happy," I whispered. "These are happy." For the first time in weeks, I exhaled. But we weren't done, not even close. Sierra filed an appeal almost immediately. She claimed the judge was biased and that Ramona had falsified her report. She demanded an emergency review hearing. Derek filed additional paperwork trying to force the court to reverse the decision. But by then, we were ready. Miles filed a countermotion for full custody. He presented new evidence, videos of Sierra partying posted publicly during the time she claimed to be homesick. Screenshots of texts where she admitted to lying about the accident. Voicemails full of profanity, threats, and contradictions. Ramona also added a second report. Her follow-up visits confirmed that our home was stable, clean, and safe, that Eli was adjusting well, that he'd shown signs of trauma but was improving. She also noted that Sierra had missed her first 2 required therapy sessions and had skipped the court-ordered parenting class. At the second hearing, the judge was far less patient. This time, she didn't even let Grant finish his opening remarks. She interrupted, saying she'd read everything. Then she turned to Sierra and asked a single question. "Do you understand what it means to be a parent?" Sierra opened her mouth, paused, then started crying again. The judge wasn't moved. She issued a formal ruling. Eli would remain in our custody. Full guardianship was granted to me and Caleb. Sierra would be allowed monitored visitation only under social worker supervision, with the potential for reunification if, and only if, she demonstrated long-term improvement. I couldn't believe it. I held Eli's tiny hand the whole ride home, stunned. We stopped at a diner, got chocolate milkshakes, let him order pancakes for dinner. That night he fell asleep between us, safe and warm. I know the fight isn't over. Sierra might try again. She might drag us through court 100 more times. But we're ready now. She didn't just underestimate me. She underestimated what it means to truly love someone. And I will never stop fighting for that little boy. Not today, not ever. Eli adjusted to life with us like he'd been here all along. His nightmares lessened. His laughter got louder. He started calling me Mom by accident one morning, and when he froze mid-sentence in panic, I smiled and told him he could call me whatever felt right. He grinned and said, "Okay, Mom." Caleb cried in the hallway for 20 minutes after that. We enrolled Eli in preschool again. A good one this time. The teachers told us he was quiet at first but warmed up quickly. He made a friend named Leo and started bringing home finger paintings that we proudly taped on the fridge. At night we had bedtime stories, silly songs, and secret handshakes. Eli was healing. Sierra, on the other hand, was unraveling. She showed up drunk at a supervised visitation, slurred her words, cursed at the social worker, and accused Eli of being a traitor. They ended the visit immediately. 2 weeks later, she tried to show up at our house. This time, we had a security system. I pressed the panic button and the camera caught everything. Her screaming, threatening, yelling she'd take back what's hers. The footage went straight to the police and to Ramona. That violation cost her visitation rights for 6 more months. Derek, still acting as her lawyer, tried to argue her emotional outbursts were stress-induced. He accused me of deliberately keeping Eli from her to create trauma bonding. Our new lawyer, Miles, was no longer nervous and green. He shredded that argument line by line, cited Sierra's missed classes, failed evaluations, alcohol issues, and neglect. The judge didn't even let Derek finish his rebuttal. She told Sierra, "You had your chance, multiple in fact. You've prioritized yourself at every step. Parenting is not a title, it's a responsibility." That was the last hearing. After that, Sierra disappeared for a while. No more appeals, no more surprise visits, just silence. Caleb and I used that silence to breathe again. We finally had a late honeymoon, nothing expensive, just a road trip to the mountains with Eli in tow. We roasted marshmallows by a cabin fire and let Eli throw rocks into a lake until his arms were tired and his giggles echoed across the trees. One night he asked if we could be his forever family. Caleb choked on his hot chocolate. I just nodded and said, "That's exactly what we are." 6 months later, we filed for adoption. The process was slow, complicated, and emotional. CPS required more interviews, more paperwork, more home inspections. But we passed every step. When the final court date arrived, Eli wore a little blue suit and held both our hands walking into the courthouse. The judge smiled when she saw him. She remembered the case, remembered the storm, and saw how far he'd come. "I don't see many stories like this end the way they should," she said, stamping the paperwork. "But today, I'm proud to sign this one." Eli was officially our son. We celebrated with cupcakes and a dinosaur-shaped balloon. That night, we let him stay up late and fall asleep between us again. He whispered, "Thank you for picking me." I whispered back, "No, thank you for choosing us." I still get the occasional text from Sierra, usually rage-filled or manipulative. I ignore them. She has no legal claim anymore and no emotional one either. Some days I wonder if she truly understands what she gave up. Other days, I don't think about her at all. Eli is our whole world now. And every bedtime kiss, every crayon drawing, every messy breakfast is proof that love isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. And we showed up, we stayed, we fought, and we won.